Hey guys, and welcome back to Above the Tree Line. I'm so glad you decided to join us. Today we have our friend Colby Huth. Yes, I'm saying it right because I almost want to say Colby Huth, but it's Huth, and he is our discipleship and men's pastor here at ACF. And I've had you on a couple episodes before, and you bring a lot of like wisdom and insight, especially to a lot of like statistical information, like of who's attending church and who's not. And so that's another thing we're going to talk about today. There was a report that came out from Barna that said there's a dramatic reversal in church attendance. For the longest time, church was primarily like there was a larger percentage of women that would attend, and now it's shifted to men, which is so surprising to me because I feel like for the longest time it was like moms, at least in my generation, bringing their kids to church, and dad would be golfing or working. Like, what's happening? Is this? Do you think this is indicated in the churches that you've been a part of? Are you seeing this role reversal?
Yeah, well, it's a pretty recent role reversal. I think it's also really focused on 2024 and 2025, and that there's this immediate shift that kind of is against what maybe the experts in the industry would have thought that would have happened. It was kind of still continuing to head on a downward trend for men, and still women dominating the attendance at church. And here recently, within the past 2 years or so, it's kind of reversed, and there's a lot more guys coming to church, and the women kind of maintaining a little bit, but still petering off more recently.
But I mean, the big question is why? Like you said, specifically 2024, 25.
Yeah.
Like what has happened in that short time period, so recent, like so close to where we are now, that has caused this reversal?
Yeah, well, I think you have to go back a little bit to kind of understand that. And we talked last time about the generations and I think a lot of the fallout of the pandemic. And I think that we are now seeing the continued fallout of that and the I guess the result of it. And a big piece of it is I think that you see a younger generation coming up. We addressed that already, that the younger generation is more on fire, more passionate, more excited about coming to church. Within the younger generation, we're still seeing the same thing true. Younger men are the dominating force in that we're seeing a lot more of them coming to church. And I think it's kind of them seeking something different. And growing up, I'm a millennial, and I feel like I have been around Gen Z a lot. There has been this thing for men growing up of like, here's exactly what you're supposed to do. Here's the blueprint. You grow up, you get the internship in college, you go to a good school, you get the job, you have a family. It's pretty much here's the thing. And I think a lot of guys have been forced into these roles. And so now this is a chance for guys, especially post-pandemic, to figure out, what do I believe? What is my personality? Who am I? And they're seeking out the answers. And where they're seeking it is the church, which is fantastic. But it means that the church now needs to be prepared to help them understand that as well.
So this statistic says that 43% of men attend church, 36% of women attend church. So from this statistic, can we gather that churches, the capital C church in America, is made up primarily of men?
I don't think so yet.
Okay.
And I think that it's a growing trend, and I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how it continues to grow and evolve. Does it continue on? Does it increase? Does it kind of flatten out? Does it decrease? Like, was this just like a blip on the radar? And I don't know where it's heading. And I think that the church has a responsibility to recognize this. And then, how do we discern maneuvering through this? Like, do we change things to allow more men in? Do we want to make sure that we don't lose the women, by the wayside? And so I think each individual church is going to be different on that, like how they address it. But I still think we see a lot of women predominant in this. And I think that the women are also going to be the ones that are more involved.
Right.
Too. This is just talking church attendance. So it's not necessarily the people that are actually diving in, going deeper, small groups, events, things like that. And so where I don't want to miss the men in this is that they are attending, but they need to participate too and be involved past just Sunday service.
So with there being a higher percentage of men attending, do we think this is primarily because of gender, or do we think it's primarily because of age? Because we do see that it is Gen Z young males who are kind of leading this resurgence in the church. Is it, I'm just wondering what the discrepancy is between why is it more Gen Z males instead of Gen Z females?
Yeah. I think I think it's both. I think that we see the like Gen Z millennials kind of surging in attendance. We're seeing the men on the side of it because they're seeking that purpose, seeking like what is my passion, what is important to me. On the flip side, for women, though, I think that we're seeing, more women in the workforce, more women going to college, more women potentially even like waiting to get married, settle down, have kids, things like that. And so in the midst of figuring out what life looks like for them too, they're discerning, well, is church a piece of that? And so I think that we're seeing a correction on that side of them saying, okay, well, before, as a mom or whatever my role was, we were in church. Like that was our thing.
Right.
And now we're seeing them having to juggle that with, career, school, friendships, things like that. And we're potentially seeing a little bit of that dive because of those things.
What's really interesting to me, though, is that I'm looking at this report, and we're happy to share this report with you guys, but there's these graphs, and it shows Gen Z men and women, millennial men and women, Gen X men and women, and then boomer men and women. And all of them are on the uptick. Like, some have like spiked, like millennial men that's pretty high right now, but boomer men is still on the uprise. They're all trending in the right direction.
Yes.
So, I would say like I love the church. I desire to be in the presence of God around other believers. What is this? Would we consider this like revival if all of these people are starting to? There's been an uptick in all of these men and women from all these generations coming.
Yeah.
And yeah, why now? I know you talked about there having been the pandemic. We saw a dramatic decrease at a lot of churches after that. And plus there was a lot of division over you close the door, so I'm not going to go to that church anymore, or you require us to wear masks, so I'm not going to go there. So it's like, is all that now kind of like dying off, leveling out, and this is like the recovery period?
Yeah, maybe. And I think we're at a spot too where we're seeing the resurgence of all of this. And I think that we're kind of at a crossroads too in our country too, where I think people's passion, their faith is kind of in the forefront of a lot of people's beliefs. I think it's a huge part of politics and just society in general.
Whether it's true or not, it's definitely being used.
Yes. And so I think that people, for the longest time, I think that we have had Christians in America, what I would term, and I think it's commonly termed as like nominal Christians. I call myself a Christian. Maybe I go once a month or so. I might not read my Bible. I might pray here and there, like at a meal or something like that, but that's kind of it. But I still call myself a Christian. I maybe would consider myself a practicing Christian. And what I think we're seeing is actually a stronger divide where there's kind of less and less of this middle ground and more of like, I am a Christian and I go to church and I practice and I'm involved, or I am not. And I think that there's good and bad in that. But I think that this is kind of a byproduct of what has kind of happened in our culture post-pandemic, and then just in the most recent years, politics, things like that is kind of creating this desire for people to go, well, what do I actually believe? Like, sure, I say I'm a Christian, but like, what does that mean? And like, how does that inform the rest of my life? And I think people are actually seeking out answers regardless of generation, which is fantastic, and I think is exactly where they should go.
What's really interesting in this, you mentioned politics, and it does say like there's a lot of young women, especially they identify more liberally politically, and we're seeing a decline in those women attending church. And it could be a number of things. A lot of women have they have feelings about the way the church historically has treated women in leadership. And so we're seeing that this could be one of the reasons why younger women are kind of stepping aside. It's really fascinating because you also see here that married dads are taking on the lead.
Yes.
And single moms are somehow left out. And that feels so flipped from what I would think is reality.
Yeah, and I think two things are present there. One, with the married dads, you're seeing dads that grew up with potentially their dad not being involved in church.
Yes. So it's like the pendulum swinging in the other direction.
We're swinging the other way. And so they're like, well, I'm an involved dad. I'm spending more time with my kids. That's a priority for me. That's a priority for me even in my job. Like a piece of my job might need to incorporate time with my kids, time with my family. And a piece of that is going to be another important piece to me is my faith and my kids' faith, probably even more so. And so we're seeing that shift on the other side of like, well, I didn't experience this, but I wanted it maybe as a kid.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that my kids have that. I'm going to overcorrect in the other way.
But does that imply that this next generation, the pendulum is going to swing back?
Could. Yeah, it absolutely could.
Which would be devastating.
It would be devastating. And I think that it is going to depend on how, again, the church handles it. Do we help these married dads handle traversing church and their involvement with it to a point where it is a healthy thing? Because I think the way that the pendulum swings is you get dads that are like, I missed church as a child. I want to overcorrect. And so then they're super involved, and potentially the kids aren't brought along with them. And so dad's always at church.
Right.
We don't see him anymore.
Right.
And we do the exact same thing with good intentions, but bad byproduct in it. And so I think it's, married dads, if you want to be involved in church, bring your kids with you, bring your wife with you, encourage them to be just as involved and allowing them to explore their faith for themselves and not just, this is dad's faith inherited into us.
Right. So then the church needs to be prepared for this. This is a pretty dramatic shift where it goes, traditionally the church was led by boomers. Traditionally women were leading the charge. Now we're seeing Gen Z leading the charge and we're seeing it led by men. So this is like a 100%, like we've flipped. So how is the church supposed to be prepared for this shift?
Yeah. And I think I would say initially the Big C church's reaction will be, well, we need to make sure we keep them, and we see these guys coming. We have to entice them to stay. And I think that's not necessarily wrong, but it can lead to, we now shift what the church is to meet the needs of the people that are there. And what I would encourage is they came because they were seeking what you already have.
Right.
And so be who you are, meet the people that are there, and create spaces where deeper faith, truer relationships can happen, regardless of like almost the gimmicks of like, well, let's do things to try to keep the guys in the door. And they will stay because they want to continue to pursue a deeper, richer faith.
What also kind of concerns me is I've seen this. I mean, this has been throughout my whole lifetime, but there's been like a pretty steady increase of events, things at church to be a part of. You can go to, there's like Bible studies every night of the week. There's different fellowship gatherings. There's hiking and we have crafting and all these things are fun and they create an opportunity for fellowship. But it's like, I guess trying to figure out, when are you overcommitted?
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you work, if you take care of a home, if you have kids, like at what point will it be like, okay, you're giving too much time to the church?
Yeah. It's going to be different for everybody, obviously. And I think that, some people have more space and time to be able to be more involved. And others, it's like, hey, like we've got a lot on our plate. We've got school, we've got work, we've got soccer practice, like things like that are on the agenda that also are important. And so finding ways it's like we are involved, but not too involved. And I think that that's going to be a key balance for these dads coming in, is talk to your wife, talk to your kids, and figure out, what does it look like for us to be involved in a healthy way that doesn't feel like it's actually keeping us separate from each other, but more so excited to be together because of what's happening at church.
So you, as the men's pastor in 2026, what is your vision for how you're going to lead the men's ministry?
Yeah. We've been talking about it for a bit, and I think I would say this is my vision for the men's ministry, but honestly, just adult ministry in general, is creating spaces for people to show up and have deeper, more authentic relationships. And that means that we're going to have those events on the calendar. My encouragement is you don't need to be at everything. I would actually encourage you not to be. But the idea is that we create these spaces, these events that happen that allow for people to come in and meet new people, meet different generations, different walks of life, and try it on for size and see kind of what does it look like for me to be more involved and feel kind of at home in this place. And I think, again, it's going to look different for every guy and what events and things that they're involved in kind of sticks. But we, as an adult ministry, are working to create spaces. And I think that that's been a big buzzword for us, where stuff can happen. Because we can't be everything for everyone.
Right.
We can't create a specific ministry, a specific event to meet every single need. But we can create spaces where those needs can kind of come out through the relationships that happen there.
I mean, I feel like even at ACF, you can see this desire for connection. Like people aren't leaving after church.
Yes.
People are like hanging around.
Yeah.
And my kids always give me such a hard time. Like my husband's more introverted. So he's like, all right, church is over. I'm in the car. My kids are in the car. And they're like, Mom, why do you talk to everybody at church? But there's this, I mean, everybody's staying and there's so much opportunity to engage. And that's when these like deeper conversations are happening. And so I think you're right. I think for so long, like there was a pretty significant period of isolation where we couldn't do that. And, you know, our ACF Cares team has talked about this wave that's now, we talked about it coming and now it's here, this like the effects of the pandemic. And you are seeing that people are longing for connection. And it's also really cool to see the young adults ministry growing, because for a long time we didn't really have a young adults ministry because we didn't have young adults. And now it's kind of this thriving, this ministry, and you're seeing all these younger faces come in the door. It's really encouraging.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that it's cool to kind of see the blending of it all is important. And I think seeing different people kind of coming and bringing something different allows the church to be more diverse. And then again, it meets new people. It kind of continues to grow the branches out more and more, and it do that. And one of the things that I think I would caution the church in is when we see these things like people sticking around after church, a lot of times in ministry, we're like very excited to like do something with that. Oh, well, people are sticking around. Let's make an event out of it.
Right.
Like, let's do something to kind of capitalize on this momentum. Sometimes the best things happen just naturally, and it's okay to just organically let it happen. And so that would be, again, one of my encouragements as we see this shift is let the shift just happen. And as, you know, you see these new generations coming in, you know, you see more men excited about coming to church, just let it happen. And don't feel like you have to do everything exactly right to capitalize on this moment, but more so just be the church. And invite them in. And just continue to teach biblical truths, create spaces where deeper relationships can happen, and they will stay.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about this recently at a staff meeting where it's like, we're not going out to try to like win people and please people. We're going after the presence of God. And that in and of itself is what's going to draw people to the church, not us trying to go out there and be impressive, but just seeking Christ in this like life-changing transformation. And I think people will be drawn to that as opposed to, I mean, there was also statistics saying that, you know, I guess in my generation, we started really investing in like even pyrotechnics and like fog machines and lights and all these things to make church really exciting. But our former senior pastor, Will Davis Jr., used to say, you win them with what you win them with, you win them too. So if you're winning them with flashing lights, that's really what you're winning them to. But if you're winning them with discipleship, like that's ultimately going to be the bigger payoff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it can also, I mean, as someone coming into church for the first time, trying things out, you see the flair, the grandness of it all. And then on the backside, it feels like your small groups are shallow. You know, there's not much richness to the events you're putting on. And so it's almost this bait and switch of like, we kind of got you in the door with all the things, but then on the backside, it's empty. And I think that's where some churches can miss that, is like, we're so focused on getting you in the door that we forget what's inside the door once you get there. And are we creating spaces that want you to stay and create something deeper, more vibrant? So
here at ACS specifically, prayer is a huge part of our DNA. So we have the prayer barn on campus. Are we, I know we're seeing new faces coming into church. Do we see that those new faces are also drawn to like these prayer gatherings? Is that a like generational difference? Because I still feel like more of us in the prayer barn are older than younger, and I'm putting myself in that crowd. Are we seeing that's having like, is there an increased engagement in prayer life?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that will be something that we'll continue to see how it kind of plays out. One of the things that I think we're noticing is this surge of people coming in is them seeking. And sometimes they don't know exactly what they're seeking. And so, you know, when we see, you know, married dads coming in and are excited to be at church, or, you know, these young guys or the younger generation, it's always like, I just know I should be here. Like there's something drawing me here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do next though. And so I think that's where the church comes in and says, here's what's next. You know, you got here, that's fantastic. Here's how to continue to go deeper.
Yeah.
It's going to the prayer barn. It's getting in a small group. It's going to a retreat, like those types of things to continue to dive deeper, because they don't always know what's next after that. And that's okay. Like, the first step is just getting in the door. The next step is going deeper.
Yeah. And all we really want is for people like our current senior pastor, Kenton Boone, is just take the next step.
Yeah.
Like just whatever the next step is in your faith journey, take the next step. And I love that, like, the word seeker is like big letters on our wall, like, because we are here for the seeker of purpose, meaning, and truth. And so I love that that's who we're seeing. But the gender shift and the age shift, this, it's really fascinating. So I'm going to continue as these younger folks start to mature in their faith. I'm curious to see what kind of church they're going to lead.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see. And I think that, you know, you talked a bit about the pendulum shift. It's always interesting to see, like, does that continue to happen? Like, you know, if we overcorrect somewhere, does it now create a shift back in the opposite direction? And I think time will tell. But I think it's always being open to what is coming. How do we kind of channel that in a way that continues to point people towards Christ?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for bringing this. You were the one who introduced this topic, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so surprised. This is not what I grew up experiencing. So thank you for just sharing your insight on it. Thank you for what you're doing for our adults ministry and for our men's ministry. I love having conversations with you about this. I love research. I love like the bar graphs, and especially when it comes to the church, it's just really interesting. But thanks again for joining us. I want to thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Above the Tree Line. And if you guys are ever interested in seeing any of these Barna reports that we're using, you can definitely request those at acfellowship.org/podcast. We can provide you the link to all of them, but they are available online. And just want to encourage you guys to continue to join us. And please, if you do enjoy the podcast, be sure to leave a review or rank us, because that helps other people find us. All right. So thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.